The project with the Probation Service started in a very serendipitous way. We were reopening slowly after the COVID closures, and I had a phone call. They asked if we were open and able to visit. So I said, well, I'm here on site, so pop on over. So they came in, they looked around, and one of them said to me, I was looking at the temperance timeline and there's something missing, at which point my heart dropped. And she said the Probation Service grew out of the temperance movement and it's not on the timeline, and we got chatting. Turns out that this was Sonia Flynn, the then Chief Probation Officer of England and Wales.
Well, we always knew that Primitive Methodism and the temperance movement, which campaigned for people to drink less or no alcohol, had a very close history, close ties.
So we got talking, and I said we would love to tell that story. At about the same time, or not long after, I saw that the Association of Independent Museums, AIM, were offering funding to tell new stories to new audiences, and this just fitted perfectly for us. So we started to explore how we could work together. To work with them was challenging, but really rewarding. We worked with them to produce a travelling exhibition and a dedicated website for stories of how the Probation Service grew. Part of the project was to research the story, and anybody that's done research will know that you end up with an awful lot of information. Amy went to various places into the records of the Probation Service and of Primitive Methodism to kind of find the nuggets of the story. There was an awful lot that had to be condensed down.
Yeah, presenting the historic information and then the modern information they wanted to include to bring it up to date, so it's not just a story from the past, it is relevant to today.
Having that relationship with them and seeing how they worked meant that we built in right from the beginning the importance of giving plenty of time for things to be approved. We had to ensure that those timelines and those deadlines were suitable for them and for us in order to deliver the project on time for AIM.
The establishing of the group, the working group of the three of us and the Probation Service, was definitely helpful because they had so many different people from so many different departments that they could have put in, but they established essentially a core team, and there's two people who stand out who did a lot of the organising meetings from their end.
I think they gave us an awful lot as well. They had huge resources available, not financial resources because they're publicly funded. They had to be very careful, which is why we were so grateful for the funding from AIM. But what they had were people to be able to work with their media and comms team. When it came to the website, they understood a lot more and how to sort of publicise what we were doing with them. They had some very good networks that we could use, and their interfaith officer was able to get the exhibition into some amazing places that I don't think we would have had the time, capacity or contacts to be able to do. We worked with our mentor that was put in place with AIM, and she helped us to create a terms of reference form. So we did do a lot of that conversation beforehand. She enabled the partnership to be on a really good professional footing. The relationships, of course, are important, but to be clear about timescales, responsibilities was really helpful to us. The reaction to the exhibition has been incredibly positive wherever it's gone, and the variety of venues that it's visited has meant that it's reached such a diverse audience that we could never have hoped to have reached. It went into other museums, the other Methodist museums. We're one of 4 Methodist museums. It also went into Gurdwaras, other places of other faiths. So we wanted to tell a story that didn't deny the Christian basis of it, but to show how our heritage makes a difference to the society that we are today.
We obviously have a passion for telling the history of Primitive Methodism, but it was great seeing the other half of the working team, the Probation Service half, develop that enthusiasm for the history when I was telling them things that I discovered, and the main one being the fact that the entire service essentially started on just a 5-shilling donation. Once they heard that story, they wanted the fact that it was 5 shillings just in the, they wanted that in the subtitle of the entire exhibition. They really cottoned on to that fact. It is very important to establish a good working group, especially it can be daunting from a small organisation looking at working with this huge organisation. But if you establish that good working relationship, it can develop, as it did for us, into a really fruitful experience with a really successful exhibition. So it's, don't be daunted by the idea of working with a huge national organisation. It can definitely work.
The long-term legacy for us here at Englesea Brook is that we have a permanent board detailing the story, the root and branch story of the Probation Service. But thanks to AIM coming back to us with some small additional funding to develop the story still further, we have developed 3 educational films for use with young people aged 16 to 18 to tell that story of temperance, the temperance movement, and the connection with Primitive Methodism. It felt important, given that this whole story started by Sonia as the Chief Probation Officer, identifying that we'd left something out of the timeline, of the temperance timeline. We have reimagined the timeline in the museum now to include, obviously, the formation of the Probation Service.